Every watch guy tells you the same lie: spend more, get more. I believed it too, until I put a $30 Casio next to a $95,000 Patek and asked them the same question. What time is it? They match to the second. So if the watch stops getting more accurate, what is your money actually buying? There's a real number where that shift happens, and I'm walking you straight to it. Let's start where every single collector starts, whether they admit it or not. Level 1, $0 to $200. This is the Casio F91W, roughly $15 at any drugstore on the planet. Resin case, plastic crystal, a quartz chip that costs Casio a few cents to source in bulk. There's no sweeping secondhand, no finishing worth a loop. Nothing a watch nerd would ever brag about at dinner. And here's the twist almost nobody wants to hear. This cheap little thing keeps better time than mechanical watches costing 100 times more. 15 seconds off a month, 7 years running on a single battery. No service, no fuss. Navy SEALs wore this exact model on active missions because it never fails, never reflects light in the dark, and never costs you sleep if it gets destroyed in the field. There are F91Ws bought back in the 80s still ticking away today in someone's junk drawer. So no, this isn't a bad watch, not even close. If price tags told the truth, this watch would be worth nothing on paper and everything in practice. Because a machine that never lets you down for $15 is genuinely rare in any category of consumer product, not just watches. It's just not a watch you're ever gonna fall in love with. It's a tool, and tools don't need romance attached to them. Buy it, abuse it, replace it in a decade, and never once expect a feeling from it. But feelings are exactly what the next tier up starts selling you. Level 2, $200 to $500. This is the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time, sitting around $350 depending where you shop. A steel case just over 40 millimeters, a deep sunburst dial that genuinely looks like it belongs 3 times higher on this ladder, and a display case back showing you a real working in-house movement doing its thing. Seiko actually builds this caliber themselves. Automatic winding, hand winding, a hacking seconds function, 41 hours of power reserve, which is rarer than most people assume, because most brands at this exact price point are quietly buying anonymous modules from third-party suppliers overseas. This is the first level on the entire ladder where a watch stops being disposable and starts being something you actually service, care for, and eventually hand down to someone. Collectors who own 6-figure pieces sitting in their safe still keep this one in daily rotation. When people at the very top of the ladder keep coming back down to the bottom rung for pure enjoyment, that tells you almost everything you need to know about where real value quietly lives. Put this next to the Casio, and the difference isn't subtle. It's the difference between owning a tool and owning a small mechanical relationship you check in on every morning. Now watch what happens the moment Switzerland officially enters the conversation. Level 3, $2,000 to $2,500. The Longines Hydro Conquest lives comfortably here. 300 meters of genuine water resistance, a ceramic bezel that won't scratch or fade, a sapphire crystal, and an in-house movement carrying a 72-hour power reserve, plenty enough to survive a long weekend off your wrist. And Swiss-made isn't just marketing fluff stamped onto a dial to justify a nicer price tag. At least 60% of the total manufacturing cost has to physically happen inside Switzerland to legally earn those 2 words. That's strict regulation, not romantic branding. This watch runs shoulder to shoulder with dive watches costing literally double, and it barely loses any ground on the specs that actually matter to you day to day, on your wrist, in real life. For a huge number of people climbing this ladder, this quietly ends up being the smartest first serious watch they will ever purchase. Compare the movement in this watch to something built for the same price a decade ago, and the gap is obvious. Power reserves have nearly doubled industry-wide, while prices barely moved, which is the rare case where the ladder actually worked in your favor. Past this point, raw specs alone officially stop telling the whole story. Level 4, $5,000 to $6,500. This is the Grand Seiko Snowflake, and it's a genuine shift in what you're paying for. A titanium case and matching bracelet, hand-finished using the Zaratsu polishing technique, where flat mirror surfaces get created one at a time by an actual human hand, not stamped out by a machine on a production line. The dial texture is deliberately modeled after real snowfall near Grand Seiko's own studio in the mountains of Japan. Inside sits the spring drive movement, a hybrid engine blending mechanical and electronic parts, accurate to approximately 1 second a day, which is genuinely impressive engineering. Here's exactly where beginners trip themselves up climbing this level. They try comparing this movement to Swiss movements purely on a spec sheet, treating it like a numbers game to win. That's the wrong framework entirely for this watch. It isn't competing on raw accuracy anymore, it's competing on craft, design philosophy, and material identity as a whole package. Only spend real money here once your own taste in watches is genuinely, personally formed. Because from this level up the ladder, emotion starts pulling exactly as much weight as engineering specifications do. There's also a resale angle worth mentioning here. Grand Seiko pieces tend to hold value far better than people expect from a brand still climbing in Western recognition, partly because supply stays deliberately tight. And once emotion officially enters the room, status walks in right behind it. Level 5, $4,500 to $5,500. The Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meters sits comfortably at this level. A ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, and a master chronometer certified movement, independently tested by an actual Swiss metrology institute for accuracy, magnetic resistance, and power reserve consistency under real conditions. This watch simply has presence on the wrist, the same way a genuinely well-cut suit has presence in a room before you can even explain exactly why. It sits comfortably in the same conversation as watches costing thousands more, and gives up almost nothing that actually matters once it's strapped on your wrist every single day. But here's the uncomfortable part. Nobody standing behind a boutique counter will ever say out loud, a Grand Seiko from level 4 will likely make you happier on a purely daily basis. You climb up to level 5 for legacy and recognition, not for extra joy strapped to your actual wrist. There's a reason resale listings for this exact reference rarely sit long on the market. Demand for genuinely versatile daily watches at this tier almost never dries up, even during years when luxury spending slows everywhere else. 2 levels remain, and this is exactly where the math officially stops making rational sense. Level 6, $25,000 to $35,000. The A. Lange and Son Lang 1 lives up here, in genuinely rarefied territory. Around 360 individual components inside, a 3/4 plate cut from solid German silver, and a balance cock hand-engraved uniquely for every single individual watch that leaves the workshop floor. You are simply not buying better timekeeping at this level, full stop. A $2,000 Longines from level 3 genuinely keeps more accurate time on your wrist than this watch does. What you're actually paying for is hundreds of hours of pure human skill poured into surfaces most owners will genuinely never once inspect closely under a loupe. Call that completely irrational if you want to. Or call it the purest possible definition of craft that exists anywhere in this entire industry. Depending entirely on your mood that particular day, both answers happen to be correct. Lange doesn't mass produce annual output numbers in the low thousands worldwide, which means owning one says less about your taste and more about your patience waiting for an allocation. And if that already sounded irrational to you, brace yourself hard for the very top. Level 7. Retail around $30,000. Resale value well past $100,000. The Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 sits proudly at the very top of this entire ladder. Steel case, 3 simple hands, a small date window, nothing more complicated than that anywhere on the dial. Patek discontinued this exact reference back in 2021, and the resale price rocketed past 6 figures almost overnight afterward. The blue dial version specifically cleared $130,000 at its absolute peak on the secondary market. No movement on this entire planet is genuinely worth that kind of markup sitting inside a simple steel case. What you're really paying for here is scarcity, mythology, in a collector market that collectively decided this specific object was irreplaceable. Most of these watches now sit quietly locked in safes, photographed occasionally purely for insurance paperwork, and rarely ever worn outside a controlled room with careful lighting. Patek isn't alone up here either. Similar dynamics play out with Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak and certain Rolex sports references, where retail and resale have become almost entirely disconnected numbers. Like and subscribe for more.